going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. It is your host, Trent James, and I hope you are all doing well. So I wasn't really planning on making another video, right? I was going to take a little bit of a break because the last couple ones that I did took an enormous amount of time. And like I said before, I don't get paid to do these. I just enjoy providing everybody with information for free that you would not otherwise get if it wasn't for individuals such as myself. Even if some of you don't believe what I'm saying, even though everything I've ever said has come to fruition, and I show the receipts on the vast majority of what I am talking about. However, it got brought to my attention that Sheriff Matthew Kendall with the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office in the northern part of California, who used to be my boss, even though I never looked at him like a boss. He's kind of like a Barney Fife guy. You know what I mean? He's kind of like just a redneck dude that's just kind of aloof and just kind of doesn't seem like he really knows what's going on. Very intellectually inferior. And that's just how I kind of always looked at him. You know what I mean? Anyway, regardless of that, it got brought to my attention that Sheriff Matt Kendall went on a local podcast in Mendocino County. That was a couple days ago. And I just had to do this video after I watched it in its entirety. So the podcast is called Like It or Not with Drew and Carter. All right. And I've been on these guys' podcasts a couple different times. The first time in 2021 when I started YouTube. And the second time was in 2022 when I campaigned as a write-in candidate for sheriff in Mendocino County against the legendary Matt Kendall. I want to start out by saying I have no issue with these guys whatsoever. I have nothing negative to say about them. Like, they're cool. I've been on their podcast before. I think that they provide a lot of value for that community. They bring in a lot of people from all walks of life in Mendocino County. And I do believe that they address some important topics within that county and that community. And so therefore, like I stated, I do believe that their podcast holds value. I do know that they have had Matt Kendall on a few different occasions. I do know that they are friendly with him. But that being said, I have nothing negative to say about them. So anything that I'm going to say regarding these guys, it should not be taken in a negative light. It is just me giving commentary. Okay. Just like they did in their podcast. In fact, I even told them ahead of time that I was going to be making this video. Now, before I get into it, I just wanted to make this comment as well. When I watched this podcast in its entirety, the entire hour, 41 minutes, at the conclusion, I kind of had a revelation to myself. I realized that when I was watching this, that Drew and Carter, the hosts of this podcast, which I will link the entire thing in the description, by the way, they were buying the vast majority of what Matt Kendall was selling them. Right? Even though we'll see that Matt Kendall doesn't really answer any of these questions. He leaves a lot of stuff vague and ambiguous. He diverts. He says things in such a way that makes it believable to you, even though he hasn't answered your question effectively or really gotten into any detail, but you're satisfied with his response. And I saw their reactions. I saw them verbalize. Even Drew said, yes, I agree with you, said that there was things there in their body language and their tone that indicated that they were believing this guy. Right. And then it kind of just hit me that that is not just applicable to him. That's all elected officials, politicians, etc., that are saying these things to the masses. Right. And people are believing them either on the left side, the right side, whatever side you fall on. And even Drew says it in this podcast. He's like, sometimes it's hard to know who to believe. Right. And that could go for me as well. However, I was able to see right through Matt Kendall the entire time because I know him. I worked for him. I worked at his agency. Nobody watching this video, aside from maybe 3% of you, have worked for the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office that are watching this video. So you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. You don't know what really happens. A lot of people have their head in the sand and they want to believe that these guys are holier than thou because they're in law enforcement. He's an elected official. He's the sheriff, right? He can't do anything wrong. And he likes to portray himself and his agency in that regard as holier than thou, as almost perfection, even though he might say we might not do everything right all the time. Okay, but that is just a front. And what I realized also while watching Matt Kendall, watching his body language, his demeanor, his tone, his inflection, is that he is believable. He is believable. If I didn't know him and I hadn't worked for him, I would almost believe it myself. It's hard not to, right? And this goes back to interview and interrogation techniques, things that we would get taught in law enforcement, right? To develop with a criminal suspect that we're interrogating, develop rapport, hit them on a friendly, emotional level, be relaxed, downplay things, be their friend almost, essentially. You're trying to get that information. But how you conduct yourself in some of these interviews or meetings or interrogations on the law enforcement side of things has a direct impact psychologically on the person sitting across from you. That's why I got so many confessions. Anybody that's even halfway decent at doing that, observing body language and tone and know what to say and when to press and when to back off, you know what I'm talking about, right? And that is exactly what Matt Kendall is doing to Drew and Carter here. Even though they might not agree with me, they might say, no, he didn't do that. He didn't bamboozle us. There's no way, right? Okay, that's your opinion. I know the dude. I've worked for him, and again, I've seen this, right? I even called one of my buddies that's known Matt Kendall a lot longer than I have. And I told him this, and he agreed. And he said, yeah, man, he's like, Matt Kendall is a very friendly, redneck, just low level threat, not aggressive type of guy. He's kind of charismatic too, carries himself in a very relaxed, nonchalant way. And when you present yourself that way, even though he's not, deep down, everybody, when you present yourself in that way, and you already have that rapport established from that person sitting across from you, your natural inclination, unless you're a very paranoid individual like I am, is to believe what they're telling you. We're kind of wired that way anyway. When someone's telling us something, it's not usually our natural instinct to second guess them, for the most part, situational dependent. But that's what happened here. He painted a beautiful picture of, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just Sheriff Matt Kendall here, man. I'm just here to tell you all the good stuff, man. Mendocino County is great. Sheriff's office is great. I'm great, right? We're going to see that. So I picked little clips out of this, right? For purposes of time, I'm not going to go an hour and 41 minutes on this entire podcast. It's linked below. Like I said, I picked the points that I wanted to discuss, that I thought were important or that I thought were hilarious, and I just wanted to make commentary. So let's go ahead and get into it. It's going to be an awesome time.
We don't pay much attention, but you see Trent James putting out videos about Lefevre being he called him, what did he call him, LaDouche, I think, and saying the sheriff's department was busting weed grows, even that they sold zip ties to and all that. And just kind of,
well, believe it or not, I have never watched one of those. I'm sorry. Sometimes
he's still going. Look at the source. He's still going.
Really?
Yeah, he's still putting stuff out. I don't.
Well, you got to look at the source. And here's the other thing. I mean, there are people who have grievances.
Yeah,
that's life. But let's look what the grievance comes from. And I'm sorry, I've seen a lot of people in this world who have a lot of grievances over the BS.
I wanted to get this one out of the way first, everybody, even though it was like toward the middle of the podcast with this. Every time I watch it, it remains funny. Okay. So, oh, Drew, you silly goose. All right. So Drew's like, yeah, I'm sure you don't pay attention, right? But Trent James is out there just running amok again. And Matt Kendall's like, who? Trent James? Who's Trent James? Just acting like he doesn't know. Are you still doing those videos? Are you still doing those things? It's really, this is so funny for me, you guys. So first things first, Matt Kendall does watch my videos. Okay. When I ran for sheriff, I did prior videos on this. I'm not going to, video itself could take like 30 hours. All right. If I'm going to bring back everything I've already done. But when I was running for sheriff, I did a couple of different videos during my campaigning and all that stuff. And Matt Kendall made statements in a news outlet, referencing everything I had said in 2 of my videos. How did he do that? So if he didn't watch them, does that mean that his little minion and maid, Lieutenant Andrew Porter or somebody, or his little nerd side companion, Quincy Cromer, the captain there now, took notes, right, on all my videos? Here, Sheriff Kendall, here, this is what Trent said. Now you have to talk about it. So he referenced everything that I said in a couple of my videos. So he either had one of his little buddies, his little sidekicks, give him that information to discuss, or he watched it himself. I'm leaning toward he watched it himself. All right. There's also been a lot of secret last minute meetings with the command staff that had to occur because of what I talked about on some of my prior videos. All right. So we're going to get into that. But the grievance thing. So he brought up that, everyone has grievances, Matt Kendall. And he referenced something in the podcast about being a victimhood mentality type of situation. So I've never been the victim of anything with the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office. I don't know what he's talking about. I quit. via email. I gave a month and a half notice prior to quitting the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office. No write-ups. Actually, I had like a write-up one time. I had a mohawk. Captain Quincy Cromer not having it. He wrote me like a 9-page write-up for like an offensive hairstyle to him. He cried about it later. Other than that, I had exceed standards on basically all my yearly evaluations. I won Deputy of the Year in 2018. I had a flawless history there. I didn't even have any complaints from any citizens. I mean, so I wasn't a victim of anything at all. And my grievances, if you want to talk about those, of course I have grievances. My grievances have always been the same thing. You don't tell the truth. You don't have accountability for yourself and the ones that you want to protect. And also, all of your guys are undocumented felons, including yourself. You guys shouldn't be in those positions. You're horrible leaders. Those have been my grievances. Prior to quitting the sheriff's office, everyone, and I did a video on this too, but just a brief recap. I had an hour-and-a-half long conversation with the captain at the time, Gregory Van Patten, at a church on the south end of Willits in Mendocino County. I was on duty that day. I was in uniform with my sheriff patrol car. He meets me up there. I said, I want a meeting with you because he was fairly reasonable. He was the lesser of all the evils at the sheriff's office at the time, administratively speaking. And I said, hey, Greg Van Patten, listen, man, I'm quitting, okay? Unless you guys fix this place. And I said, I'm talking on behalf of a lot of people that I'm working with right now, deputies and sergeants, because they're afraid to talk to you guys. And he said, why are they afraid to talk to us, Trent? Because they know what's going to happen if they go against the grain, if they talk out about all the issues going on here, because we've seen it. You're going to get blackballed hard. They will paper fuck you, right? So if you say something against the command staff, you're going against the grain, you're questioning everything they're doing, you're getting in their way. They will write you up for every little thing. And if you try to transfer to another agency, they will do their best to make sure that that agency doesn't take you. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because they don't like you. It's very personal. They're very immature and vindictive. I've said this multiple times. This is not just Mendocino County exclusive either. This is agencies nationwide. It's really a pandemic, if you want to know the truth. So Greg was listening to me talk about this, and he's like, well, we wouldn't do that to them, Trent. We're not going to get anybody in trouble for speaking out. And I'm like, what about Gregory Clegg, Deputy Gregory Clegg, Captain Van Patten? When Lieutenant Jason Cadillo at the sheriff's office had made some comment to Gregory Clegg, and Clegg made a comment back to him, verbal stuff. And then Jason Cadillo, lieutenant, got in his subordinate's face. Actually, he got in his chest because Clegg was a lot taller than Lieutenant Cadillo. He was basically looking down on him. But the lieutenant, Jason Cadillo, was looking up, going like this, pointing his finger in his chest like this, right outside Captain Gregory Van Patten's office, who is best friends with Jason Cadillo. He even told me that in that same conversation. It's common knowledge. Captain sees this. A fight's about to ensue in the parking lot there at the sheriff's office in Ukiah. Physical fight. And Deputy Clegg has already been the victim of 242 of the California Penal Code by his lieutenant. You can't be doing that to somebody, okay? So the captain runs out, breaks it up. They write up Deputy Clegg, written reprimand for insubordination. Deputy Clegg then tries to transfer to the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office. He was successful in transferring. The Sheriff Tom Allman, Captain Greg Van Patten, and everybody there contacted the sheriff down there and the people that were doing the background check and a part of the hiring process, and dogged Deputy Clegg out as hard as they could, even though he was one of the best cops that we had there at the time, just to stick it to him, right? So that was a major problem. And Captain Van Patten, you know, I'm like, dude, nobody likes these guys. So that's what I mean by they will screw you over if you're going against them in any way. Okay. That's just one example of many. All right. One of my partners on the street, I'm not going to name his name because he still works there. He got a major negative on his yearly evaluation by Lieutenant Andrew Porter because Porter had a problem with him personally. Lies. I reviewed it. And my friend's like, what is this? This isn't even accurate. It went up the chain of command to Captain Van Patten, who also doesn't like Andrew Porter. And he ordered Andrew Porter to change it because he lied on it. So that's what I mean. Like if they have personal problems with you, it's an issue, right? So we all had grievances with these guys. And I told Greg Van Patten, man, Your lieutenants are garbage. They're not leaders. They shouldn't even be cops. They have no street experience, especially Andrew Porter. That guy's a clown. Okay. They've done nothing of note. They treat us all like garbage. It's having a direct impact on the community, especially where I worked in Covelo. Like my lieutenant, Andrew Porter, was telling everybody that he wanted to implement all this stupid stuff that was going to be a huge hindrance and a negative. He was wanting to send out like 30 cops at a time to do this max enforcement stuff and then leave. And he thought that was a good idea to develop rapport within the community and to solve crimes and everything else. There was a laundry list of complaints here for a lot of these lieutenants, Jason Cadillo, JD Comer, Andrew Porter. And I said, not only that, like, how can you promote these guys knowing about their past? Your Lieutenant JD Comer used to sell meth when he was growing up. When he was an adult, he assaulted somebody with a baseball bat, and while he was affiliated with the Norteño gang. Not to mention this child pornography case that's occurring at his home that's still under investigation for 2 years. And you promote him? And I said, Andrew Porter, that guy sucks. Nobody likes that guy. In fact, Sheriff Matt Kendall, back when he was the undersheriff, verbalized to more than one person, when I'm sheriff, I'm never going to promote Andrew Porter, but he did anyway, right? And Andrew Porter, you know, he got fired from Rio Dell Police Department for sexual relations with a minor, got to quit in lieu of termination, right? I've said this before, but I'm like, how can you promote these guys? They're ruining everyone's lives and their background, they're felons, right? And he said, I agree with you. I don't like them either, but they tested the best. And I was like, so they tested the best on a written examination and an oral board. So that means that they're suitable to be lieutenants and leaders of other cops. Right. Long story short, he heard what I had to say. Right. Greg Van Patten went and talked to a couple of my partners. They also corroborated what I said, but they kind of said like, hey, we don't want to officially complain about anything. But yes, this is what's going on. Nothing got done. And then I quit. So Matt Kendall, I'm not a victim. I had legitimate grievances. I was speaking on behalf of pretty much everybody that worked there at the time. You didn't even answer these guys' questions about the zip ties at all. You completely brushed over that. The zip tie issue that I brought up, where it's fully documented. I provided all the receipts, man. The sheriff's office was illegally providing marijuana growers with zip ties. You put them to your plant and we won't come chop it down. That's essentially extortion. You're paying to not have something done to you. All right. That's protection illegally. And that's why they got rid of that program. They got threatened by the feds. Like, dude, you need to stop this, right? But the sheriff's office, Sergeant Bruce Smith with the Comet Marijuana Unit back then, along with a couple of my friends that I still talk to that were on that unit. Yes, they did purposely go out and chop down zip tie weed grows to stick it to the command staff. And also I heard Bruce Smith himself say it's still illegal. They can't be doing this. I don't know. And he didn't like Tom Allman, the sheriff, and the undersheriff Randy Johnson. I've said this so many times, right? So it's funny to see these guys all laughing about this. And it's like, yeah, I guess it's funny if you're, condoning Tom Allman lying to the public, Matt Kendall clearly lying to you right there in the public, that, anyone that's watching this podcast, I guess it is pretty funny because people believe it still. That's funny to me. So yeah, I guess it is funny, right? And he doesn't even comment on the fact that it's documented and well known by a lot of people in the community that Matt Lefevre, who writes for Mendo Fever, writes one-sided, biased, fabricated false articles on numerous occasions. I discussed that at length in my last video, along with the zip tie program. So instead of him addressing actual issues, you guys see what he did? He just laughed off. Hey, you still doing those things? Oh, shoot. Yeah, well, right. That's just how he goes. And they're just kind of laughing about it, and it's just like, oh, it's just Trent James. Oh, you still at those things? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But yeah, completely ignores the issues that I brought up. And those issues, I provided documentation for them on my last video. It took me forever to put that together, just to edit it, because I want to make sure I'm on my stuff. I'm not Matt Lefevre, where I just don't print any, like I'll just say whatever I want and provide zero proof of any of it. That's what that guy does. Right. And so it's just, you guys choose what you want to believe, but this is very comical to me. Okay. This was the one part that I wanted to address first because it was so hilarious in so many ways. Let's keep going.
We have just gotten really, really ridiculous, and people are not taking responsibility for their own actions.
I agree with you. And I'm like, if you listen to Trent, like his point is like, that it doesn't apply to sheriffs, right? Like some of the sheriffs, you know, will do something and they're not being held for their accountable to their actions and things like that.
How in the heck would he know whether or not they are? I'll bet money he doesn't know who I fired, who I haven't.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I think he's just going off of, I think that basically who has their jobs. And I don't really want to get in the middle of it or anything, but to me it's just interesting. Like it goes all around. All of us have to be accountable for what we do, right? And that goes for not both just regular people, but for law enforcement and for politicians and anybody else. Like we're all under that big scrutiny, and that's why I just read. I look at this stuff and I'm like, what really is going on? Because
I love every part of this interview, everybody. So, Drew, I got to give Drew props on this. At the tail end of that, he's just like, I see this stuff and I don't know what to believe. And Drew, I can understand your point. And I referenced that obviously at the beginning of this video, right? Where, yeah, you have this guy sitting across from you, Matt Kendall, that you know fairly well by now. And he's very calm, cool, and collected. You guys got a rapport going. He's just like, I'm just Sheriff Matt Kendall, right? So yeah, you're like, but you have Trent James on a screen just talking all kinds of crazy stuff, even though, again, I'm backing up everything that I say. When has Matt Kendall ever done that? They still haven't even said what I'm lying about, him or Tom Allman. Trent James isn't telling the truth. About what? Like your guys that have been fired, your guys that have been arrested, the stuff that is documented that you guys have done in the past. What am I lying about? They've never once been able to come at me. That's why I haven't been sued for defamation of character, everybody. No civil suits exist, and they're never going to exist. I think that Matt Kendall hinted at that years ago on the first one of the first episodes that he did with Like It or Not with Drew and Carter, where he like hinted at the fact that he was we're gonna be taking care of that. Yeah, Trent's talking stuff. We're gonna be dealing with that. I never got served once, bitch. You can't, because the burden of proof's on you to prove that I'm lying, and I provide all the documentation. You know what I'm saying is the truth. Plus, if litigation were to happen, guess what I have access to? Everything. And the public's coming in to see it, right? That's why that'll never happen. That should be a clue, everybody. So, but Drew, I give you props for at least, trying to stay middle of the road on that. And I could totally valid point. I understand that. So Matt Kendall is saying that, as a society, we haven't, we're gotten out of control and we haven't been able to take, no one takes accountability or responsibility for anything. And then he goes on to say, he got mad. Did you see that? His hand starts doing this. His chest, he's starting to breathe heavier. He's like looking into it now. He's turning more red. That really triggered him when he started to talk about, how do I know, right? You see that? Because he knows. He knows. Matt Kendall, you used to be a detective back in the day, albeit you were a terrible one. You've never been a good cop. That's common knowledge as well. I'm sure you're an excellent trout fisherman, though, right? But I've stated it in prior videos. This is common sense. Like, I bet you money. Okay, pay up, Kendall. Pay up. Go up to one of Tom Allman's properties, dig up one of his bunkers that he has his gold and a whole bunch of shit in, and you can pay me in that. You know what I mean? Pay up, because I'm going to prove you wrong. I already have. Okay, so check this out, everyone, about to blow your mind. It doesn't even take a detective to figure this out. Like a 9-year-old with some decent common sense could deduce what I'm about to tell you, all right? I'm from Ukiah. I grew up in Ukiah. I was in a law enforcement capacity for several years in Mendocino County. So it's reasonable to believe that I still know and talk to people that are affiliated with the courts there, the county, the sheriff's office where I worked for a long time, Willits Police Department, probation, right? How do I know? You think I just completely stopped talking to everybody? Of course not, man. Of course not. It's your own guys, Kendall. They don't like you. How many times do I have to say this? Because they're nice to your face in the hallway. They don't want to get fired. They have wives and kids and stuff. Not all of them hate you, of course. But when I was still there talking about grievances, again, this is common knowledge. You know this as well as I do. Nobody liked to work there then, man. Thankfully, all of your lieutenants are slowly disappearing. Thankfully. That's going to clean up a lot of the trash. And you should be next, for sure. Tom Allman trying to run and hide from a RICO case, and Randy Johnson retiring because of a RICO case and running and hiding from it too. That doesn't give you a right to have the job as sheriff. It never did. Right? So, but yeah, that's how I know, man. That's how I know. I've said this before. Check within. That's why Greg Van Patten had to put out that countywide email that one time to say that nobody was allowed to talk to me and provide me information. That happened. Facts, everybody. Facts. So come on, bro. You already know. Why are you on there lying to Drew and Carter? I bet you money. I bet you money. Come on. Let's go. Pay up. And talk about lack of accountability. Okay. So where was your accountability? I'm going to bring this up forever, just like the Khadijah case. What was your accountability for your Lieutenant J.D. Comer, who randomly just retired early and relocated to Texas for that child pornography case? Where was his accountability? Because you're protecting him. Because it's to protect the reputation. To protect the whole, you got to protect each individual at that level. That's how that goes. So when that case first started in 2019, and it didn't conclude until 2021, a basic CP case that you were trying to cover. When that first started, you didn't pull him off of the street until the investigation was concluded to rule him out altogether. And I've already done multiple videos on this, you guys. Matt Kendall made a statement. I completely proved, because that's what I do. He doesn't do it. Neither does Matt Lefevre, that he was lying. Right? Nobody cared though, I guess. I don't know. That's why I wonder, like, why I even do these things, man. I know there's a lot of people that reach out to me that thank me profusely. Thankfully, a lot of people have woken up in the last few years, but it's like, you know, that's why I think I got to like just kind of take a break sometimes. But that being said, where was his accountability? You didn't even prove it wasn't him for like over a year. You're so stupid. You admitted to that in that article where you thought you were being clever and saying that I wasn't telling the truth or that I was messing up the investigation. You yourself stated that. So that whole time, you weren't even 100% sure that it wasn't him. You just said, I watched his dash cam footage. We figured out he wasn't home when it was getting watched one of the times. And so therefore it wasn't him. No, he was still a prime suspect. The next prime suspect, his son, Bailey Comer, that ultimately took the rap on that. You were allowing Bailey to go through the hiring process to be a deputy with your agency during that entire time. So not only did the prime suspect, one, J.D. Comer, get to continue to work the street during that whole time, you did not fully rule him out. And as you said, it was up to Sacramento to do that. And they didn't do that for over a year. They themselves stated that. Okay. Also, but Bailey Comer was the next prime suspect, number two. Knowing that whole thing was going on, you let him go through. It was only until I started doing videos did you drop him from your hiring process. And then, yeah, later he got booked in and all that. Where was the accountability for him? There was none. Where's the accountability for your patrol sergeant, Rich Van Barren, who a little over a year and a half ago had a report of a 19-year-old girl that said that he forced himself on her when he's like 50, right? Investigation went underway. They concluded that she was lying. 50-year-old Rich and 19-year-old girl did have sexual relations, but it was consensual. It's because her boyfriend found out and she didn't want her boyfriend to get upset. She lied and said that it was forced. He got cleared of that. But where was his accountability? That's still conduct unbecoming of a patrol sergeant to have sexual relations with somebody old enough to be his daughter. Actually, I think his daughter is that age, knowing she has a boyfriend. And some of that was on duty. There was no reprimand. Seriously, he should have just been removed from the street altogether. Policy violations, if nothing else. But that didn't happen. And then fast forward a little bit, he had a major sexual harassment complaint from a very young girl that still works there. I'm going to leave her name out of it. To the captain at the time, Greg Van Patten. Hey, Rich is sexually harassing me. Captain GVP, his response, well, we'll just put you on different shifts. That way you guys don't interact. That really happened, everybody. Completely just disregarded. And that's what happens in a male-dominated profession. The women, and I've seen it myself, they just get treated like they're less substandard objects, and everyone's trying to hit on them, all the married lieutenants and some of the sergeants. And it's just disgusting for sure. Then that got ignored. And then 6 more women approximately went forward later to report that Rich Van Barren, that same sergeant, had been sexually harassing them for a long time, touching them, saying inappropriate things to them. I've been a witness to some of this as well. Nobody was doing anything. And it's true. Nobody did anything. Right. And this was 6, like I think 5 to 7 women that were affiliated with the sheriff's office, either in a civilian capacity there, the deputy, worked in the jail, dispatch. said that he had been doing these things. The prime person that presented you that information, that woman, you said, well, I guess I have to look into this now because there were so many and there was an official like memo or document drafted, right? So what was your accountability for your Sergeant Rich Van Barren, who rents your house out in Brook Trails, your secondary home that he uses, that he rents from you? And he has for years, like over a decade. Is your buddy? I think so. So what'd you do? You didn't pull him off the street while a major sexual, another one, man, this guy just can't keep it in his pants. Your big punishment for him while that investigation was underway was you put him in the marijuana comment unit, which just to remove him from the out of sight, out of mind situation, which gave him an automatic 5% pay increase because it's a specialty assignment. Where was your accountability for your deputy, Alex Tong, that recently got arrested for strangling his girlfriend? And I have that video footage, by the way, of like where he comes out of his house completely stone cold sober when he's getting confronted by his neighbors. And he's like, hey, what's going on, guys? Like, what's the deal? Gets arrested. UPD, Ukiah Police Department Chief Cedric Crook, his agency that arrested him, even stated in that news thing, yeah, we've known about multiple incidents about Deputy Alex Tong for a while now, going back to over a year. So did you, Sheriff Kendall. It got reported up your chain of command, that incident from September 2023. So you've known about that. You've been letting it slide. It wasn't until he finally like almost killed this girl, probably. If it hadn't, who knows what would have happened if the neighbors didn't get involved. It wasn't until then when he finally got arrested did you have to finally take action. And what'd you do? You just made sure he got into a rehab facility, even though he was sober for that incident. Clear as day on the video. Not slurring his speech, walking around just fine, clearly cognizant of everything that's happening. Psycho. Right. And I could go on and on and on with this, guys. This is just getting redundant. So many videos have been done about this. So no accountability. Where's your accountability? The public has to have it, but you don't. That's another grievance you can put on the list, Kendall. Hypocrisy.
I'll go visit my children because I love my children. But I also have son-in-laws, okay? So there's a big difference between your children and your son-in-law. I love my father-in-law. He is one of the most incredible people I've ever met. He's mid-70s, can work like a dog. I mean, I've never seen a man who can work as hard as him. He and I built a house together after work every night with a headlamp on my head, and he could work me into the dirt. I mean, I am literally sucking air over there because I'm getting to be an old fat guy. And he's still running up to the top of the roof and doing the splits over the top of it in his mid-70s.
Good for him.
But I know that no matter how much I admire that man, he looks at me and says, Matt's a good guy as long as he's taking good care of my daughter, providing her a good house to live in, raising my grandchildren with the morals and values that I think are correct. And as long as I'm doing that, then I get the pleasure of sitting across from him at Thanksgiving.
I just thought this one was funny, everyone. So he's basically saying I wouldn't be able to face my father-in-law if I was treating his daughter disrespectfully and not providing her a good house to live in, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So Matt Kendall, you didn't provide her that house. That was her house. You arrested her original husband, boyfriend thing for domestic violence. That's how you met her. And then you later moved into the house. So she actually provided you that house. Pretty sure, right? And also, I'm just wondering out of general curiosity, I know you don't watch my videos, but maybe Quincy or Porter or one of your other little lackeys can inform you that I need this question answered. Maybe not, it's not even a question. Maybe you can make a response to it. I don't know, even though you probably will act like you don't know I exist again. But I just want to say it's truly unfortunate that we do not have access to the documented calls for service, other documentation of incidents, domestic incidents that occurred at your house when you lived in Brook Trails back in the 90s with your first wife. I wonder if your first father-in-law would be able to sit across the table from you at Thanksgiving. Do you think that'd be the same thing? I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. And when these guys get elected, and it doesn't matter what's behind their name, there's a push from these political parties that you will toe our party line. Mm-hmm. And if you want to go any place in politics, you're going to continue to toe our party line.
Well, Matt Kendall here is talking about, Republicans and Democrats. If you're not going with the flow, then you're just not going to exist anymore, right? You're going to be dealt with accordingly. Same thing is applicable to his agency. I found this hilarious and incredibly ironic, incredibly hypocritical. This was so funny to me. And I already explained myself earlier in this video. If you go against the good old boys club, you go against the command staff and the sheriff, you will find yourself fired or unable to get hired anywhere else. They will make sure of it. Matt Kendall, you're just laying this all out for everyone to see. Again, the fact that people still believe this is insane. You are one of the biggest hypocrites ever. I already gave that story about Greg Clegg, who was the golden boy poster child for deputy and deputy work, and he was phenomenal. And that's just one of many, right, that went against you guys. I myself did it as well. I have another friend that did it too. You tried to screw over everyone that went against you guys, right? So it's the same thing. Okay, come on.
Had killed a bunch of people in Mendocino County in the 70s, something like that, maybe?
No, it was over several decades is what she
Over
said.
several decades, murdered tons of people, hid their bodies all around, and now he's 90-something and dying, and she has to tell the story and get it out, right?
And he looks like the Zodiac Killer sketch.
Is that what it is? Yeah, Mendocino County, yeah.
So, now, believe it or not, this is still an active investigation.
Oh, come on, Matthew.
But my portion of it, the portion that I can talk about,
Okay.
is she was alleging that he was involved in a homicide in Mendocino County, that he was the killer here, this, that. And the next thing, we were able to get a DNA warrant, and that DNA warrant did not match the suspect's DNA, okay? So, I'm sorry, that one's kind of a non-starter. And then...
But that was one out of like many that she claimed.
Okay, so let's see.
So
Who
a
is
DNA
the most...
warrant. So that means you take her grandpa's DNA or the suspect
Yeah,
and
the
match it
suspect's
with
DNA.
DNA from the crime scene that,
Yeah.
that you assume to be the killer, and they didn't match.
No, they did not. And we also loaded into CODIS the big bank that goes against all unsolved crimes. But let's look at this, and I can speak in generalities, okay? So the most prolific serial killer, I can't remember his name, but I think that he was good for 60 that they know of.
People.
Right? 60 people. I think Ted Bundy, they figured that he was good for 8 or 10 more. I was talking to a guy who worked serial killers at a conference many years ago, and he had actually done some work on some of the Ted Bundy's cases. And I said, well, how many do you think he was good for? And I said, what's the standard? When somebody gets caught, how many do you feel like he didn't get caught on, or whoever?
Yeah.
And they said, absolute worst case would be 50% more, but we've never seen that. It's usually 10 to 15% more.
Than what they confess to.
Than what they confess to, right? So I believe the absolute most prolific serial killer killed right around 60, all right? And he made his mistakes and he got caught. Now, I think that this young lady is alleging somewhere between 500 and 750, 500 to 750.
Murders?
Yeah, but nobody's found a body yet.
Yeah.
Not sure that anybody's that good. And this is just me being...
See if
this
you
is
can
just
find
me
out
being...
how many she said.
I think it was like...
Oh, that's her father and the Zodiac Killers thing?
No, that's not her grandpa, but that's the sketch. And then the guy that she posted, what was her name? I can't even remember. But anyways.
Anyhow, there's some... Now, we do have some things that are still under investigation here because we do have to look at every claim.
Sure.
But I can tell you, let's see, who is the most prolific serial killer in the United States? What people didn't realize was we had been working on that case for like a year. And, we'd been working on that case for like a year. And
Recently?
oh, yeah. No, we started in like late 92, early 93.
Okay.
And we had detectives on the case. And, of course, we aren't talking about it because it's an active investigation. But then all of a sudden it comes out.
Okay, so this one, they're discussing this woman by the name of Galena Trefil. I'm sure everyone in Mendocino County is aware of this. I also did a couple of videos on it, alleging her father, 86-year-old John Trefil, is a serial killer and has been since the 60s or 70s, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to get into the whole thing, right? But her main complaint was that the sheriff's office hasn't done anything. So a press release was generated by Captain Quincy Cromer, right? The same guy that got fired from Ukiah Police Department for lying in his internal affairs investigation. So he put out a thing, which I'm going to put up again, stating that this is what they've done. So Matt Kendall saying, well, what public doesn't know that we've been looking at that since for over a year, right? 2023. Yeah. So You got his DNA and you referenced it in CODIS, right, against that homicide from 1970, and it didn't match, and it was a non-starter. Okay, so the public, this is what he means by all of this, right? So, and then I think that they Quincy Cromer broke it down. They went and checked the property. They didn't do any digging. They didn't use any sort of radar device that can penetrate the ground penetrating radar. And they didn't even interview John himself. The excuse was his fragile medical state. I don't know what that has to do with anything. I've interviewed plenty of people with various medical conditions. Okay. And also Galena said that she would he would be willing to take you to the bodies if you just go talk to him. Okay. So let's just start up with this DNA thing. So the sheriff's office had enough probable cause for a judge to sign a warrant to go force John to provide his DNA to them to run it against that first homicide. That means they had enough evidence. That's what probable cause is. They had enough evidence to show that there was a likely that it was likely that he was involved in this homicide. What should that tell you? There's enough evidence there for a judge to sign a warrant for his DNA. That's pretty substantial up front. So what if it didn't match? Who's to say that DNA belonged to the serial killer? His DNA wasn't there, so you just said that's a non-starter. You just called it a day. You went and walked around a property, essentially, is what you did. You didn't even talk to the primary suspect. Quincy Cromer stated that in this news article. So no, you didn't do anything. Drew and Carter, you guys don't watch my stuff enough, man, but let me just tell you, okay? When somebody like Matt Kendall says something is under active investigation, and he does, this is common, okay? I worked there. I know what these cases, what they mean, okay? He did the same thing with the Khadijah Britton case, even though they haven't done anything on that case for years. How do I know? I was one of the main people attached to that case from the very beginning for 4 years prior to me leaving, okay? I know what I'm talking about. So active investigation means that it is just open. It's fancy terminology. Again, it's an illusion. It gets you to believe your brain chemistry works in such a way to where you hear those buzzwords as a civilian because you don't know any better. Oh, that means they're actively investigating it. No, that is not what that means. It just means it is not a closed case because they haven't caught the suspect. It doesn't mean they're actually doing anything with it because they are inundated with child sex cases, with, robberies, with kidnappings, whatever else. That is a low priority. That's what that means. That's a fancy word for low priority. It's still open. I just technically can't, they actually can discuss it with you. By the way, he's the sheriff. He can if he wants to. All right. And also he said that he just pretty much said he's not the suspect. There's a non-starter, right? Actively looking into it. No, you're not. What are you doing, Kendall? You're not searching any properties. We know that for a fact. You haven't talked to the suspect. We know that for a fact. Quincy just said it. You're captain. You haven't talked to the daughter. We know that for a fact. She's still making posts. I'm not saying one way or another, everybody, whether this is legit or it's not legit. I'm just saying to confirm, there is a way to confirm if it is or not. And my point is Matt Kendall is choosing not to do that. I guarantee these conversations behind closed doors he is saying she's full of shit. I don't even want to waste my time with this. Plus, he doesn't like the fact that the public is all over him about it. And because he's so ego driven, he doesn't want to have to do anything that he's basically told to do by somebody that is beneath him. And that's how he looks at everybody, even though he plays this little game like he's just a good old boy. Right? Just Matt Kendall. Shoot, I've been around for like 40 years around these parts doing sheriff stuff. So, that's not true. He's not doing anything. And again, same thing with the Khadijah case. Active investigation, can't talk about it. No, it's not. What are you doing? You're not doing anything. I just talked to Khadijah's grandpa 3 days ago. They're not doing anything. Zero, nada, nothing. Active investigation. Right. And no, he did not claim 500. She did not claim 500 to 750. It's 12, Kendall. At least 12 homicides. And Matt Kendall's sitting here referencing all these other serial killers, diverting from the main subject, right? Because he doesn't want to have to answer direct questions related to that. So he's just trying to put it off. All these other serial killers, even the most prolific one only did 60. She's saying 500 or 700. She never said that, man. What are you talking about? And even if it was 500 or 700, just go confirm it. You're basically just making excuses as to why you shouldn't have to look into this because Ted Bundy, one of the most famous serial killers, killed only 40 or 30. Therefore, John Trafil, if he was a serial killer, it's impossible. He couldn't be a serial killer because Ted Bundy killed more and he's more famous. where is the logic in that, everyone? I mean, dude, this is just like elementary to me that I have to watch this and listen to this guy and that anyone believes anything he's saying, or like, I mean, because does that make any sense? Because Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy have documented 30, 40, 50, whatever, how many people they've killed. They're so famous. They're just, you know, they're known as serial killers. But she's saying 500 or 700, even though she didn't. She said 12. Then it's impossible or highly unlikely because they were very prolific serial killers. That's basically what he's saying. He's just making excuses and pushing that narrative. Like I just said, that it's probably not true. And it couldn't be true. I don't know. I'm not the one looking into it. No one's paid me to look into it, and I'm not going to, right? I'm just saying, man, you guys got to read between the lines on this and really listen to what he's saying, okay? He's done nothing, just like with Khadijah. You haven't done shit, Kendall, with that case ever, and you never cared about it.
I don't know. It does so much damage to investigations to talk about these things because inevitably something will come out that you don't want the real suspect to know about, you know?
Yeah.
And it goes directly back to, I mean, I lost 40% of 1 week to dealing with Facebook rumors. Seriously. And that's where that BS asymmetry comes into play, because something can throw it out. By golly, you see it on the internet, it's got to be right? And then the people who are actually working on it, they say, no, that's not what happened. Oh, you must be covering something up.
Yeah, you son of a bitch.
Well, let's picture. Basically, it was about 2014 when everybody on Earth wound up. That's when social media flat took off, right? And look at all of the problems that we've had since 2014.
And everyone, he makes several complaints and, you know, whining about the fact that technology, where it's at right now. He references this several times throughout the podcast. Like, everyone has an iPhone and Facebook, and ever since 2014, when social media really hit, it's been nothing but problems. I disagree. Everything has a pro and a con. Pro, information gets out there quicker. People can know about emergencies, dangerous situations, dangerous suspects, sex registrants. They get news faster about stuff that's going on within their communities that they need to know about. So when you do your press releases, that information that you do on Facebook, so you're saying you hate it, yet you're out there doing press releases on Facebook. Why? Because you know that's going to be the best way to get a hold of people these days. It's much more efficient and safe than it was back in your day, back in 1924. Okay. That being said, is there cons that come along with that? Yeah, of course there is, just like with anything else. And he's basically insinuating that there's misinformation coming out, right? What he's referencing is people like me pushing facts, and he can't control the narrative, right? And therefore, he doesn't like that. He doesn't like the fact that the public can so easily consume this content and this information, because it'll potentially make his precious reputation look a little bit bad, even though he still gets to do whatever he wants, right? He's going to for another 4 years, because that's how much longer he's in there. But he complains about this fairly often, and it's pretty funny to me. Yet they still utilize social media and Facebook and Instagram and all kinds of things to push information to the public. Overall, it's more of a benefit at how, in terms of safety and crime and everything else, to have this technology that we have these days. So why don't you look at it like that, instead of the fact that it's so abundant and so fast that it makes you look bad. And also, he's saying that in reference to this 1970 homicide, he's like, because everybody's talking about it and we had to talk about it, now everybody knows that this guy, he basically said it's not John Trafil because the DNA didn't match. That doesn't mean he didn't kill him, dude. Again, I thought you were a detective. That doesn't mean he didn't kill him. You found some DNA on somebody. That means that DNA that's automatically the killer. Must have missed that one. What? You know, you're going to need to reference who that is, of course, and say, hey, why is your DNA on this person? But that doesn't automatically guarantee that is the guy that killed, or the guy that killed that person in the 70s. What are you talking about? And saying that guy is now aware that we're looking into this case. You think he's not aware that was going to get discovered at some point in time, man? Come on. Didn't you guys put out some article about it? You said, like, back in the 90s about how you found those remains. He's already aware, bro. What are you talking about? If he's even alive? You know what I mean? That's a classic diversion tactic excuse. So what are you doing? I mean, oh my God, I can't even with this, you guys.
You know, it's just like I was saying, like, I don't know if you can talk about it either, but like, what's up with Shamise Cubinson and Icer and all that whole situation?
That's one of those things where I'm not really involved in that.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, there's all of this reporting on both sides that I don't know. It just all of it feels like it's just designed to pull everybody apart, and nothing's bringing everybody back together.
Yeah, well, I was reading about it. I mean, they talk about sheriffs investigating and not having emails that's supposed to be there and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, what is all this stuff? It just seems to me like it makes us all look incompetent and kind of dumb up here.
Well, the issues that surround all of that stuff, though, is that you have to remember that sometimes the prosecution and the defense try to bolster things up and make, you know, great big news out of everything because that's what serves their sides.
Yeah.
Brief backstory, everybody. The county auditor in Mendocino County was illegally removed from her elected position by the Board of Supervisors because she had initially went after the district attorney there, Dave Eister, talking about essentially him using funds that he wasn't supposed to. And there was some issues there. He clapped back at her and went after her for some misappropriation of funds for some, you know, a $68,000 misappropriation of funds between her and another coworker. It's a very long, convoluted story. I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but it's funny. Matt Kendall says that doesn't involve me when it does. I thought you were the sheriff, Matt. It does involve you because your agency got dragged through the mud on this thing, all through the AVA and throughout all of these court proceedings. And Judge Mormon tossed that entire case. Your little minion, Lieutenant Andrew Porter, was the main investigating officer on this entire thing. He was the one that was quoted the most, especially in the AVAs being affiliated with this thing, accusing her of having these supposed deleted emails that were going to prove that she was guilty of this misappropriation of funds. Those emails never existed. That got proven. Like that were going to show her, that were going to show that she was guilty of this. That's why the judge tossed the case. And the only reason the DA there charged her to begin with a felony illegally was because of a personal vendetta. And anybody that has had experience with David Eister knows what I'm saying is the truth. He's done this multiple times. I've seen it personally when I was in law enforcement. He would go hard at certain people that he had a personal issue with. Others he wouldn't. That's just how this goes. Everybody is immature in these situations, you guys. And Kendall saying, I don't know, but it's just because people don't get along. He references this too. I wish we would all just come together and sing Kumbaya, sit in a circle and hold hands around the fire like back in the day. You shoot, dang. Like, dude, I know you guys, Drew and Carter, like, this guy needs to come down to LA and switch places with me. He is a much better actor than I am. I'm just going to tell you right now. That is all a front. That is all an act. I've caught him saying this multiple times before where he says it doesn't have anything to do with him. The guy that you supervise was the head of that investigation. What do you mean? That means your agency is directly involved. That means you are directly involved. You're just skirting around the issue just because you didn't technically do the investigation yourself. You're not involved. Of course you are. Of course you are. And now you're the DA there who was once you guys' relationship is so weird, man. It's like a high school relationship, like boyfriend and girlfriend thing. You guys are on and off, on and off. He is getting disposed in this case. She's still suing, man, and she's going to win. The fact that those crimes that she allegedly committed were completely dismissed in court goes hugely in her favor. Hugely in her favor. I don't know what you're talking about. You're not involved. Nice try. Also, you're Lieutenant Andrew Porter now that was just heading up that investigation. Now that it completely just exploded in the sheriff's office face and the DA's face, and she won. Now he's randomly retiring early. His excuse is that his wife's retiring. So he's like, I might as well too. Is it that, or is it just because of all this negativity and all this bad press making him look like the idiot that he is? And he's tired of it finally. I wonder which one it is.
Well, the county gets audited.
California to conduct
year.
an audit of all Mendocino County operations and departments.
Is that just a normal thing?
No.
Yeah, well, it kind of is. I mean, we get audited every year.
Well,
I get audited quarterly.
This had to do with us, with Mendocino County sending out bad ballots. Ballots mailed flawed ballots to all its registered voters before 2024 election.
Oh, okay.
Then a state review found deficiencies in the county's financial reporting, which helped explain why it was chronically late filing its annual financial transaction reports. And then it just goes on, but it looks like they're wanting to know what's up.
Yeah, well, believe it or not, the county gets audited pretty much constantly. I get audited from the board and BSCC through corrections. I get audited through post. I have post audits that go on all the time. I get audited quarterly through the auditor's office. We in our county our accounting software. I can't bring in a dime or spend a dime without it going into this software that creates the paper trail afterwards. So.
A comprehensive audit of all county operations and departments, along with examining the organization's contracts and procurement processes.
Wait.
Sounds.
Okay. So Matt Kendall again acting like, just like me doing videos, acting like he doesn't know what's going on. So the sheriff, so he must just be horrendous at his job, right? Because he doesn't know apparently about any of these things. Just oblivious. He's like, oh, wait, what's going on now? Are you telling me that the California's Office of the State Auditor is going to be auditing every single county department in the county of Mendocino County over the next several months because of major financial deficiencies? And they were chronically late in filing their annual financial transaction reports for multiple years. So an audit of all county departments and operations. Guess what that's going to include, everybody? The Mendocino County Sheriff's Office. So yeah, I guess Matt Kendall is just the most incompetent, unknowledgeable sheriff in the history of time, because he doesn't know when a major state entity is coming in to look at his books, essentially. And him stating, I get audited and I do this and that. You get audited quarterly by the auditor's office. Is that the same county auditor's office that your department was just involved in trying to prosecute and put felony charges on her? That's the same one? She was just illegally removed from her office for like a year. So her replacement then, maybe during that time, did she have one? Who was it? Like, and were they in charge of coming to do this audit on you? Also, Matt Kendall, weren't you the one that sued the board of supervisors to prevent them from looking at your financial records? I know there was this whole thing about you didn't want them to have access to your IT department, which is a bunch of nonsense. It's IT. It's not information pertaining to your active investigations that you're not doing anything with. Okay. But you sued them. You spent thousands of dollars of taxpayer money to seek outside counsel, somebody you were friends with, and you stated that in an article, to sue them, to prevent them from looking at your budget because you were consistently over for years and you were not able to furnish proof on what you spent those funds on, right? So if anybody should be concerned about this audit, it should be you. And I know that you are. You're just acting. I can see it, man. Takes one to know one. You know what I mean? Solid work, Kendall. Solid work.
To do. And the other thing is, I think that right now our county is heading in a really good direction. I'm really happy with where the sheriff's office is going. I'm pretty happy with a lot of the directions that the county is taking, and I think we have some hills to climb with the budget. But at the same time, that's kind of a good thing, because we're going to be able to kind of, really work this out and find out what's important and what's not. I think we're going to see some good things happen in the next couple of years.
You think the county's heading in a really good direction after all that? You guys are getting audited by the state for major financial issues here and failure to report. And you guys just try to prosecute the county auditor there. Your DA is getting deposed in that case. You've lost pretty much all of your lieutenants recently. You've had to fire a couple guys. There's major issues going on like countywide that are going to affect that county, and a lot of things are going to come out, and I'm very excited for that, right? And you think it's heading in a good direction. Copy that.
Yeah.
What are the reasons? I'm interested in this. What are your reasons for not liking him? What's your big couple?
My big two reasons:
Yeah.
that he refuses to have a conversation with anybody with a different point of view, and if you ever truly believe that you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong damn room. You are. I mean, that's just the way that it works.
So he's not teachable.
No, and the issue for me is if you don't talk to both sides, if you don't talk to the people who disagree with you, you're only getting half the story. That's all you're going to get. And, simply dismissing all the law enforcement leaders.
So everyone here, Sheriff Matt Kendall is talking about Governor Gavin Newsom, who is just the worst of the worst also. And Sheriff Matt Kendall's main complaint is that the Governor Gavin Newsom will not talk to anybody with a difference of opinion. And also that, if you think you're the smartest guy in the room, you shouldn't be in that room. And also you need both sides. You need to hear both sides to get a good picture about what's going on. This is incredibly ironic and hypocritical. Okay, so Matt Kendall, you and your administration, especially like when I was working there, you refused to have conversations with anybody with a difference of opinion. And if we did come to you with a different opinion or a better way to do things, because all of you guys thought that you were the smartest guys in the room and knew what's best. We've always done it that way before. Why are we going to change it now? If it ain't broke, we don't fix it, Trent. Damn it. Right? We came to you guys multiple times, myself included. I had to sit down with you in your office with the captain, Greg Van Patten, too, about how to fix and help Covelo. I did it with Andrew Porter, Lieutenant Andrew Porter, prior to my conversation with you guys, too. You guys don't have it with anybody that has a better idea than you. You can't take criticism. You think you are the smartest ones there, especially your Lieutenant Andrew Porter, who you love and adore and admire for some insane reason. Okay. And it's just crazy. You are the same exact way. You're referencing all the negatives on Gavin Newsom when you yourself have those same personality and character traits. You can't talk to anybody else. Tom Allman, your prior boss, who still tells you what to do, according to him. He was famous for getting red and pissed and storming out of meetings, town meetings, like in Covelo and stuff. I've seen him do it myself when somebody would approach him with a different point of view or criticism. Couldn't take it at all. So you must be talking bad about him then too. But no, you guys can't take anything. You guys never listened to anything that we had to say. And anybody that was coming at you with some criticism that you didn't like, they were labeled as toxic for the department. And you continued your terrible methods that never improved any of these communities. That was hilarious. And the both sides thing, you should be looking at the both sides. Why don't you tell that to your little buddy, Matt Lefevre? Start telling him to print both sides instead of just one side on his articles, man. You know what I mean? This is all just rules for thee and not for me. That's all this is, Kendall. That's all I'm hearing. And it's crazy that the public is just listening to this and being like, oh, yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. Again, everybody, look beyond the words. Okay, listen to what he's saying, but think about it. All right. There's a lot of intelligent people in that community. All right. You guys just need to really listen to what's being said. And he's saying a whole lot of nothing, making a lot of excuses, still being very vague. Now, do you see how he's not really answering anything? And just blaming other people for what he himself does. It's comical. I love it.
Yeah, that's a crazy thing.
I don't know. Anyway, so
Yeah.
the issue is, though, that information, and it doesn't matter what the information is, it travels so fast nowadays that you're playing catch up behind it. And that's one of the reasons why, like, our local media here, if something goes on in Mendocino County, they always go to the front of the line. And I don't care if it's what news agency is reaching out. If we've got KZYX...
It could be Like It or Not.
Yeah, you could be like it or not. We got KZYX, K-Mud, Matt Lefevre, Ukiah Daily Journal. They get the first bite at everything because they care about our people. And then you see these folks showing up from NBC and all these other places. They're looking for a little soundbite, and it doesn't do anything for the county with the exception of satisfy morbid curiosity for folks down in.
Okay, here we go again with Matt Kendall complaining about technology. Dude, you got to get out of the horse and buggy era, dude. And he's saying it doesn't matter what the information is, it travels too fast. I just explained earlier in this video, it is incredibly effective for a lot of different things to have that information at our fingertips. Again, there's pros and cons to everything, but overall, it is definitely a pro. Why are you complaining that people have faster access to give them warnings about what's going on in their area, like criminal stuff, like all your press releases that you do? If you have such a big problem with it, why are you on? You should delete your whole Facebook account for the sheriff's office, Matt Kendall. Why even have it? That's all you're doing is complaining about this information. There's a reason why he's doing this, and it goes on a little bit further, right? Where he's saying that these new local news outlets will have access to information in the community first because they care, and NBC is going to come in and want a soundbite. So this all goes together. So him complaining about the technology is because it makes him look bad, and he can't control the narrative. That's why he's saying he's having to play catch up. He cannot control the narrative. And again, that's why he prefers to go to these local outlets. Mendocino will write whatever Matt Kendall tells him to write. That is proven time and time and again. NBC and those other ones won't do that. He can't control those bigger ones. And he doesn't like NBC because they're the ones that have been blasting the federal RICO case that involves his department. He doesn't like those guys. He's like, he doesn't need them coming in to call him out more on stuff that he's actually doing that's wrong and illegal. He doesn't need that. He needs these little dudes that look up to him and worship him and the ground that he walks on to write whatever he tells them to write, because he can control that narrative. All right. Like it or not, with Drew and Carter, you guys should start looking into, hit him up too, man. You guys got stuff going on in the news sphere there in Mendo. Do some unbiased reporting. That would be very refreshing for that community for a change. You know what I mean? I try to do the same thing. I mean, I just give you guys information that I have accessible to me and try to tell you guys what's up, right? And I don't have to do this. I don't even live there anymore. And again, it's just that when I see stuff like this, I feel it's just some responsibility. Because anything that he says now, that doesn't affect me. I don't work there. I'm never going to work there again, right? And I've gone on to do a lot of incredible, amazing things with my life since I left his criminal enterprise and Tom Almonds. But it affects an area that I grew up, that I'm from. All right. Like, the years that I've lived in Mendocino County far outweigh the years that I've lived outside of it. So of course, I love that place. And I have a lot of good friends there. And a lot of good friends that still work for the county, Matt Kendall. Right? So I feel like almost a sense of duty here to provide you guys with this information. This has already gone on way too long. And again, I could make a 300-hour long video on all this stuff, just going over again what I've already put out on the internet like 2-3 years ago. Okay, this is all the same stuff, which is why this shows you how stupid this guy is to go on a platform like this and have the audacity to even ask, how does Trent, I bet you money he doesn't know. I bet you money. What are you talking about, dude? All I got to do is make a call right now. Be like, hey, did anybody get fired recently that works with you? Right? You're never going to figure it out, bro. You haven't this whole time. I know that you were out there. Like Matt Kendall, when I first started YouTube, he was scouring. These guys were scouring the department, trying to find out who the snitch was, right? There's never been only one that's given me information, man. And I said this, I'm very open about it. I said this a long time ago. It's not that hard. Not that hard. But, I bet you money. Pay me my money. Anyway, everyone, that's going to be it for this video. I'm going to take a little vacation from the old YouTube channel for a minute, but you guys, as always, choose who you want to believe on these situations. But again, what do I really have to gain from this situation? Matt Kendall and those guys, they've always claimed that my motivation to fabricate and make false allegations stems from some sort of pettiness or being disgruntled. I can't be disgruntled. I quit. There's nothing to be disgruntled about. The thing that always offended me is that I found out that I worked for a bunch of criminals and that they were allowed to hold those positions. It was insane to me. I'm like, what? And the fact that they were doing these cover-ups for guys that they were close to within the department, allowing sexual harassment, allowing crimes to be committed, and allowing things to get swept under the rug. That's the issues I've always had. It's the right thing to do, is to tell people. That's why I got into law enforcement to begin with, as cliche and corny as it may sound, is to help people that can't help themselves. And I loved that job, and I loved doing it at the time. Not anymore. Right? But there's still a part of me that's never going to go away with that aspect. That's been my only motivation this entire time. All right. But again, if Matt Kendall is telling the truth on here, and you know, him and Tom Allman are like, Trent's lying, Trent's doing this, Trent's doing that, then that would mean I've done some major damage. I've been responsible for getting cops fired there and people investigating this county. I've talked to the FBI before, more than once. And I've done a lot of other things. So if I'm inflicting all this damage and doing so much bad for that county and Matt Kendall, don't you guys think that I would have been sued by now? I'm pretty sure I would have. Right? I remember Tom Allman used to say, well, you know, I can't, elected officials can't generate that, you know, they can't be the victim of a defamation of character suit. True. However, I haven't just talked about the sheriffs there. I talked about the undersheriffs, the captains, the lieutenants, some sergeants, the DA, well, who's an elected official. But there's a lot of other people that I've talked about that have been my main focus that were not elected officials. They can 100% do that. Nobody's done it. Nobody's tried. Nobody's going to try. Because y'all know you are guilty as shit. So anyway, everybody, thank you for watching. Drew and Carter, I still like you guys. Even though, dude, next time I'm up in Mendo, I'm gonna come stop in, and we're gonna do a podcast live, and it should be a good time. Ask me some hard questions. I will answer them honestly, unlike the guy that you just had on your show. That's gonna be it for this one, everyone. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.